All right, so I should be live. Let me know if you guys can hear me okay, and we'll get started in just a few minutes after a few more people jump in. I have 11 so far. Shouldn't take too long. How's everybody doing? Yep, we are live. That is correct. Apologize for the creakiness of my chair, by the way. I usually edit that out, so this is live, so I can't edit anything out. I have a few disclaimers to go through before we get started. Give it a little bit longer. Hi, David and Grish. How you doing? Apologies if I mispronounce your name. I mispronounce most things at the first time, so being human and whatnot. I'm not a cyborg or a Cylon, contrary to popular belief. Little science fiction humor there to get us started. All right. Let's see. All right, so I am going to just go through a few quick things just to kind of get us started. So the first disclaimer is probably the one that all of you know is coming. This is alpha software. It's the Cosmic Desktop has not been released yet. Also, I'm pretty sure Alpha 6 of the Cosmic Desktop is in the Fedora spin. Alpha 7 was released recently, so we will be updating to that. But basically, things will go wrong. It's alpha software. We need to expect things to go wrong. That's part of the fun. So we could think of this more of a preview than a review. Just keep that in mind. So as things come up, it'll keep things interesting because during obviously a recording, I edit out certain things. I still show you guys the bugs because I always want to be transparent. But going into this, like I mentioned in the description, I haven't used the Cosmic Spin yet of Fedora. Now I have been using Cosmic on Fedora because my daily driver is Fedora currently, but what I've been doing is installing GNOME, the normal version of Fedora, and then I just add the Cosmic Desktop, the repository basically, and install it. So what we're doing today is checking out the actual Cosmic spin of Fedora. So this is not the GNOME version. This is the actual Cosmic version. So that's what we'll be installing today. And I'm going to be using my HP Dev 1. I wanted an excuse to dust this laptop off. I haven't used it in a little while. So I already created the flashed the USB media. I've already done that. I've already booted from it. I'm just sitting at the screen, which I'll be switching to shortly. So just keep in mind, things will go wrong. The other thing is that this should be an interactive review because there's going to be some things that you guys want to know about or want me to show you. So if there's something that you want to see or want me to look into, let me know. I can't promise that I'm going to get to everyone's request, but if there's something in particular that you want to see, then by all means, let me know in the chat window. I'd recommend you hold those requests until we get into the installed system. The first thing I'm going to do is install it. After I do that, then I'll ask for some guidance. I'll actually maybe ask for guidance during the install as well. So what I'm going to do right now is switch over to the screen capture right here. And actually, I see that the logo is kind of over the top of the recording there. There we go. I fixed it. So hopefully everybody could see the screen recording or the screen capture card at this point. If you're not seeing a wallpaper here, neither am I. Like I mentioned, this is alpha software. We have just this, looks like a charcoal color backdrop here on the desktop. And it seems like it's actually mirrored. That's interesting. Let me see if I could fix that. See, this is live, and this is kind of what we go through live. There's always something here. So, there we go. Now it should look normal. Basically, everything was reversed, mirrored, if you will. So we see the install icon right here. There might be some lag with the capture card. Again, that's something I edit out. I usually, you don't have to see that kind of thing. But what we're going to do is just go ahead and install it. But before I do that, let's just take a look at the system that I'll be installing this on so you can get a little idea here what I'm working with. So it's 64 gigs of RAM, essentially. It's not what the dev one came with. I upgraded it pretty early on. We have AMD Ryzen 7 Pro graphics here. Actually, that's the CPU. The graphics are down here. Disk capacity, it's showing the disk capacity of my flash drive. Currently, it's not installed yet. So we can see a little bit of information here about the machine that I'm going to be working with. Is it Calamares, the installer? I don't know. That's the interesting thing. We're about to find out. So, like I mentioned in the description, I wanted to go in blind. I didn't want to, use it and then give you guys my thoughts. I thought it'd be more fun to just go in blind and just discover this with you guys. So that's what we're going to do. So let's answer that question right now. So I'll just open this up right here. See what installer we get. And here we have the installer. So here I'm just going to choose my language. Actually, I'm not. It's already correct. I think you guys know the drill here. If you have a different primary language, you can always just select something here. So that's not new. I'm going to click continue. And this is the Anaconda installer. And I was kind of expecting that because the main version of Fedora, the GNOME version, has a new installer. But as far as I know, that hasn't been extended to the spins yet. So I kind of expected this to be the case. So keyboard layout is correct. System, it's already selected the only drive and tells me I have barely no space free. That's because this was using Pop! OS, so it already had an operating system on it. And just like with normal Anaconda, if I click done, it's going to realize that it doesn't have enough space to install, so we'll click reclaim space. And this is so much easier on the new Fedora installer to wipe the drive, but it's not all that hard because all I have to do is click delete all. I have nothing on here I care about. I haven't used this machine in a little while. I love the HP Dev 1. I really wish they did a HP Dev 2. So we're going to click that. Delete all. I don't care about anything on there. And I'll click reclaim space. And that satisfies the requirement of this section right here. All right, have a question right here. Will this broadcast be available later on the channel? And the answer is always. I don't really see any reason to make a live broadcast, just to get rid of it after it's aired. I think part of the fun is people could go back and watch this. And I'm going to be adding this to the playlist for my reviews and previews. So it'll be, along with all the other ones on the channel, you'll see it there on the list. So definitely want to make sure that I keep things available for you guys. And also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention real quick to check out the shop at merch.learnlinux.tv. Have all kinds of really cool stuff there. For example, there's a Kernel Panic t-shirt that I just created recently. It's one of my favorites. It's hilarious. If you want to know why it's hilarious, go take a look at it. Merch.learnlinux.tv. Everything you guys purchase there goes right into the channel. It helps me keep going. Anyway, let's get back to this. So what we'll do is click root account. And I'm going to leave it disabled. I don't need the root account enabled. I do that anyway, normally. So that's fine. We'll leave that disabled. For the time and date, New York, I'm on Eastern time. Close enough for me. And network and host name. Now, I am not connected to, I don't think I'm connected to a network right now. So I'm just going to call this Cosmic, I guess. I can always change that later. Just for the sake of simplicity, I'll leave it at that. User creation. I'll create a user for myself right here. Make sure that I have administrative privileges, aka sudo. I'll just create a simple password here. Actually, no, I won't. I'll give it a good password. How about that? Hopefully I could type this on the first try. There. I think that will do it. We'll click done. And how's my audio, by the way? I had to turn my head a little bit to look at the computer screen, so hopefully it's still good. What I'll do is click begin installation. Let's get this going. So I'll click that. And again, this is Alpha software. So the question is, will it install? I guess we will find out. And I also don't know how long it's going to take. It's funny because whenever I do a distro review in post-production, I always just fast forward this part so the progress bar just zips right over in like 5 seconds. But until I invent time travel, I'm not going to be able to do that today. So we're just going to let this finish. 14% isn't bad. I literally just clicked on it. That's pretty good. See what kind of, and while we're waiting, guys, you can ask some questions and help pass some time. See what we have here. So 26%, it's going pretty well. The last time I used the Anaconda installer, it got like 50%, and then the rest of it was like quick. I mean, the progress bar seems out of alignment. I don't think this has anything to do with the cosmic spin because I've noticed this outside of the cosmic spin as well. And here we have a question. Will cosmic be good for gaming? Honestly, I don't really think it's going to have that big of an impact, good or bad, because your underlying distribution is going to, really be the factor there. For example, the version of the GPU drivers that the distribution includes, and you should always use the NVIDIA driver. I've never been able to play games reliably with the Nuvo driver, the open source one. It doesn't apply to this machine because it's AMD graphics. So it really shouldn't matter. Now, it's possible sometimes a desktop environment might, not release some resources for the games because technically when a game is full screen, the compositor should take a back seat. Whether or not that happens in Cosmic, I'm not sure. I haven't had any issues yet. Everything seems fine. So I don't really think it'll factor. What's your favorite Linux distribution? Currently, it's Fedora. I just released a video about this actually where I show my daily driver setup. I used to use Pop! OS. I still love Pop! OS. But I just like the fact that Fedora gives you the latest GNOME. I really love the GNOME desktop environment. Cosmic is my favorite desktop environment already. I could tell you that. So that's what I use most of the time. But my GNOME implementation is going to be, basically taking a backseat. But whenever I do use GNOME, I like it to be the latest version. And Cosmic is based on an older version. I meant to say Pop! OS is based on an older version of Ubuntu. So that's why I went that direction. What's the hardest distro to install? The one that was the most complicated for me, in my opinion, was Linux from scratch. I haven't actually taken a look at that in a very long time. Does anybody know if that's still a thing? I haven't heard anybody talking about Linux from scratch in as long as I can remember. But I have to say that was the hardest one that I've ever installed. Gen 2 takes a little bit of work as well. So I guess that would be a runner-up if Linux from scratch isn't a thing. Tuxedo OS on a Lenovo. That's interesting. That's pretty cool. I love Lenovo. I have a ThinkPad. I think I mentioned that in one of my videos recently. An older ThinkPad X1 Carbon. I love the X1 Carbon. They're just so thin and the keyboard is really good. So definitely understand why you're using Lenovo. That's a pretty cool. And a T590 is going to be the 15-inch version for those that don't know. All right, so look at that. The installation is done. I was kind of worried that we might just be sitting on the installer for a long time. What I'll do is click Finish Installation. That takes us back here. So what I'm going to do is restart it. We're going to see a little bit. You're going to see basically nothing on the screen for a little while until it starts up. The BIOS screen or the post screen doesn't really come through in the capture card. Some of my computers do, and some of them don't, which is why sometimes I'm able to show that. but it shouldn't take too long to start up, so we should see it pretty well, or pretty soon. So I'm just at the grub screen. I'm just pressing enter to, make it quicker. Yes, that's right. HP isn't Lenovo. I didn't mean to imply that. Hopefully, I didn't misspeak earlier. My ThinkPad X1 Carbon is not what I'm using today, just to be clear. But I have one, and I really like it. I'm kind of a laptop fanatic. I really like different models and the differences between them. All right, so let's log in. And what I'm going to do is mirror the screen. You're not exactly seeing what I'm seeing, but what I'll do is mirror the screen right now. Now you're able to see it. So for those that don't know, this is something that I have to do every time I record because I use a screen capture card. So I have to mirror the screen to the capture card. So I basically just do this every time I record a video. And here we are. So we have the installed version of the Cosmic Spin of Fedora, but the first thing I'm going to do is update it. We want to make sure that we're running the most up-to-date packages, always important. And I'm going to use this right here to do that. Am I connected to Wi-Fi? I don't think I am. So what I need to do is connect to Wi-Fi. So let's do that right now. Oops. Maybe I didn't type that correctly. Let's try that again. Interesting. We might be running into a bug here. All right. Going to switch the camera back here so I could visibly look at the password without showing it to everyone. Just make sure I'm typing it correctly. Bear with me. And interestingly enough, this is not working. So what I'm going to do, let's see if I have an adapter. And this is interesting because Wi-Fi works with every distribution that I've tried on this thing. So I'm going to mess with this a little bit and see if I can't get a connection. It's always possible I mistyped the password, but I don't think I did. Interesting. This is very, very interesting. All right, bear with me. It's going to be a little bit of a dead screen here for a moment, guys. Don't worry. I am just going to double check that the keyboard is working, which would explain if the password isn't being entered correctly. Try this. And this particular computer does not have a actual Wi-Fi or Ethernet. I meant to say Ethernet adapter. It's just all Wi-Fi. So let's go to network settings. Try to manually add the password here. Yeah, I agree. And what's really interesting about this is that usually when Wi-Fi fails on Linux, it doesn't show a Wi-Fi adapter at all. You just go to the list of Wi-Fi networks and it shows like you don't even have an adapter. So it's really not happened for me where I type in the password and it just doesn't work. So what I'm doing is just going through, and I think it worked actually. I'll show you what I did to fix this, or at least I should say to work around this. Let me reactivate my screen here. So what I did was I just went into settings and then the Wi-Fi network, and I manually added the password there. When I added it by just going here and typing or clicking on the network and then typing the password in, it didn't work. I even tried opening a text editor, typing in the password so I know it was right. I tried copying and pasting it in here. It did not work. But when I pasted it into settings here, it did work. So this is a bugs. And this is okay because we were expecting to run into bugs. So that's fine. Excuse me. Okay. So now that we have an actual connection finally, let's check for updates. Seems like it's taking a moment here. Let's just give it a minute and see if it, again, we could be running into a bug. And this is okay because I could just open up a terminal and run, dnf update, which is just as easy. I was trying to avoid doing that. Normally, that's how I do that. Install updates. I just use a command line for a lot of things because I'm old school like that. But I'm trying to avoid, I just want to show the Cosmic tools as much as possible because Cosmic is the star of the show in this particular video. So we're going to give this another minute. I just want to make sure that it's actually doing something, that it's not, stuck. But normally I've never had Fedora take this long to refresh before, but it did. Hey, look at that. There's a bunch of updates here. As you can see, we have a ton, mostly the Cosmic apps. Firefox released a new version, LibreOffice, things of that nature. So what I'm going to do is install all the updates. And while this is running, if you guys have any questions, let me know. So basically, you're pointing out that there's a different minimize, maximize, and close buttons in the element styles. I don't really know. I mean, I agree with you, but I've run into this with no maps on Plasma and vice versa, or like flat packs and this and that. We're in a transitionary state right now. But that would be interesting if they could fix that, because I agree that's inconsistent. Here's the second part of your comment. And that's a deal breaker for you. Yeah, I totally get it. It's kind of the way it is right now a lot of times, but I'm hoping that something will happen to fix that before final release. Nothing is better than GNOME 48 on Fedora. I really like it. I just prefer the tiling that Cosmic has built in. And it's not that you can't do tiling on GNOME. You can install an extension. But I'm pretty much extension free. I hate extensions because it causes memory leaks or instability or just all kinds of weird behavior. So my mentality on extensions is to install as few as possible. I really like the fact that Cosmic has it built in, and I hope GNOME does the same thing. I really think they should, because that really does seem like the way things are going. There's a lot of people that like that. Are there any new books in the works? Yes, I'm in the beginning stages right now of writing something. I can't really say too much right now because it's possible I could change and do a different idea. I'm going to be self-publishing. I had a lot of trouble with my publisher. They just didn't want to cooperate with me, and it just got very frustrating. That's why there hasn't been a new edition of the Ubuntu server book, but I am still going to write something. I'm in the beginning stages, like I mentioned. I hope to have something, that's more pinned down to give you guys a more concrete example, or actually a direction. But just stay tuned for that. This is a great comment. It's a very bright border. Yes, it is. And here's how you fix it. You go here, and there's this active hint. Turn that off, and it goes away, just like that. I can leave it off for, well, I don't know. I mean, I kind of want to leave things at their defaults as much as possible. The reason why this is the case, why that's there, just open up another application. It just helps you understand which one is active, and you can hold the super key. And while you do that, you can press the left and the right arrow, or up or down for that matter, to select a window. So it helps you not need to reach for the mouse. And without it, if I go ahead and turn that off, the arrow keys still work. So I could still select a window. As you can see, I'm just pressing or holding the super key and pressing left and right. It's just not as obvious which one is, the active window. But that's probably the number one thing that I think is mentioned when I do reviews on this. I agree. The thing is, it's a very jarring border, in my opinion. It should be a lot thinner, or it should glow or something like that. I'm really hoping that they change that, because I kind of feel like it's an eye strain at a certain point, how thick that is. So hopefully before final release, that's something that they'll consider making a change to. So it doesn't look like a whole lot's happening here, does it? I clicked update all, and it's not really happening. So let's try this. It's always possible any of the issues that I'm experiencing might even be fixed by any of these updates that I'm going to be installing here. So it looks like it tried to update and then it just stopped. So we'll just do it the old-fashioned way. How about that? Can you change the border color? Yes, you absolutely can. Just trying to remember where that actually is. I know I've done this. I know I've done it. I know I have. Maybe it's here. Let's see. Odd. Unless I'm blind. I always thought it was in here. Active hint. I know there's a way to do it. I just don't remember how to do it. Wonder if it actually installed the updates and didn't even mention. Let's just double check that. Go back here. Check for updates. So it looks like it installed the updates, but it lost communication with the progress bar and didn't really show the fact that it was doing it. Right now it's telling me that there's nothing to update here. Now I also noticed that, I'm not really sure if this is expected or not, but there's, no repository here for Cosmic. Now I'm wondering if it's in the actual repositories itself. Just see, go here. Okay, let's restart. Just to be on the safe side. Click confirm. I know this is a question that was targeted towards the greater audience. It's funny when I see comments like this, because I can't wait, because I make content, I make content around this, so I have to pretty much try things right away. I don't mind that, but I guess it doesn't really matter to go a month, before you install a new release. But honestly, like with Fedora proper, I haven't had any problems at all. But then again, your mileage will vary. You can't see that I'm typing the password, even though I am, because what's going on is that Cosmic thinks that there's two monitors, my screen capture device and then the built-in monitor. As I type on my laptop right now, it does show the password being typed, even though it doesn't for you. And I activate screen mirroring. So it's kind of interesting that it shows the login screen on both monitors. But as you'll see, I just pressed enter and I'm logging in. And check this out. Actually, you can't see it yet. Let me fix that. Display settings. Make sure we mirror. Okay, now you should be able to see what I see. And notice that as soon as I installed the updates, there was no updates left to install. We checked that. Now I have a wallpaper. So that looks like it was probably a bug. And now that I've installed the updates, we see that we have a wallpaper. I didn't change it. Personally, I'm not a fan of Fedora's cartoonish wallpapers. I know a lot of people aren't. Thankfully, it's pretty easy to change. Just right click the desktop, click change wallpaper. And I'm personally partial to space wallpapers. I mean, I really like this one, so I'm just going to change that. Maybe something a little more subtle. This is literally the wallpaper I use on most of my computers nowadays. So that's that right there. Anyway, you can press the super key to bring up this little app launcher, which I've always enjoyed. And now we see my actual hard drive. Earlier, it showed the flash drive because I was running off of that, but now I'm running off the actual hard drive. So we see that Fedora 42 Cosmic. So that's pretty cool. So we see that right there. And let's just take a look at the general release. So right here, we have workspaces. And I really like the workspaces in Cosmic, but there's no animations really. I mean, there's missing animations in Cosmic at this point. So you'll notice that sometimes things just immediately appear. That's a double-edged sword. I mean, some people might even prefer that because, you know, it's quick. It's very quick. It just makes it feel snappier. So even I like a little bit of animation, but it's not one of those things that I'm totally sold on that has to be the case. But we do have, and like you'll notice here, we click on applications. At least it did the first time. There's a little bit of an animation there. Anyway, we have our workspaces here. Now we only have the one. Now, if I open up an application, any application, and go back to it, it gives us another workspace. So this is basically dynamic workspaces, very similar to a GNOME. You always have one more workspace than you currently need. So that way, you have an empty desktop to work with. So I'll just launch Firefox right here. And I go back to workspaces. Now we have a third. And we can also pin workspaces, which is pretty cool. If that's something that you want to do. But anyway, here's workspaces. As you can see, it's a very quick transition. It's just sudden, as you can see. Let me get updated with the comments here. All right, so let me just go ahead and go to applications. So there's two ways to launch applications, and I know this from having worked with Cosmic in the past. The super key gives you the app launcher, and this is your app drawer, so to speak. And we have different categories here, like utilities, system. So if you don't know the name of the application that you want to launch, you can just use this just by clicking applications right here. But if you do know the name of an application you want to launch, like you want to launch the terminal, you can just start typing it, narrows down the list to what you are typing in there, press enter. You can use the up and down arrows to select something different if it's not the first result. Actually, I should probably show you this too. Etsy OS. I always like to show these in my review, all my previews and reviews. We can see the Etsy OS release information. For those curious, we're on kernel 6. Whoops, little misclick there. We are on kernel 6.14, as you can see down here. So I like to show that. So we have applications, getting back to that. So we can always add a group if we want to. So if you want to do that, you can. I think this is pretty cool to organize your applications. So I'll just do Jay's favorite apps or something. I mean, you could do whatever you want here. And it's truncated because I gave it a really long name. I guess I'm trying to give Cosmic a workout today. I should be able to just drag an app in there. And I am. Now notice how Firefox was here, but it went away because I dragged it in here. So that's pretty cool. Interesting that the terminal isn't in system or in utilities. So what I'm going to do is just drag it into system, I guess. And now we see Cosmic is there in system. So I like the fact that you can, organize your applications, and I'm kind of an organization freak, so that really makes me happy. Now, looking at the rest of the desktop here, we have our date and time right here, a calendar, presumably a calendar, at least the, I meant to say, I'm not sure if it syncs to Google Calendar or anything like that yet, but at least we have the calendar. We have our input language here. We can always add another language if we need to do that. And here we have tiling mode. I love tiling mode. I'm going to enable that. Notice that it says the current workspace. So if I go to workspaces and go here, it's not tiled, okay? But I tiled this one. So we can tile per workspace, which I think is one of those things that, you know, a lot of people have wanted. And is the dock customizable? Yes, it is. We will look into settings. We'll get there. We totally will. But I'll answer your question right now and tell you that yes, you can. Now, going back here to tiling, we have some different things here. So new workspace behavior is floating currently. So that means any new workspace I create is not going to be tiled. But if I click that and then go back to workspaces, just open a new window. Notice that it's tiled now. Cosmic text editor, let's run that. Now, anytime I enable tiling, I like to configure the panel to be auto hide. I guess we're getting to the panel a little earlier than I thought we would. So what I'm going to do is go here. I believe it's under desktop. Let's see if I'm right. So we have the panel. I keep using the wrong word. Panel refers to this up here. Dock refers to this down here. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to automatically hide it. And when you have tiling enabled, then I think it makes a lot more sense to auto hide the panel on the bottom, or the dock. See, there I go again. This is live after all. So I like that a lot better. Otherwise, if you don't do that, I feel like it just wastes screen real estate here in the bottom. We have all this empty space. So I'm going to leave that on auto hide, at least for now. And is it customizable? Yes. So as a matter of fact, I'm going to disable the auto hide for now so we can kind of see what all we can do here. Disable tiling so we can kind of focus here on the panel. So we do have quite a few, or at least a reasonable amount of options here. We can make the panel extend to the screen edges. Actually, this is the one I meant to click on. This option here gives you a bit of a gap. I like that. I think that looks pretty cool. So now the panel goes the entire length of the screen, if you're into that kind of thing. Appearance, we can actually give it the light theme, even though I'm using the dark theme. That's pretty cool. I'm just going to match the desktop on that. We can increase the size. If we want to, we can make it small. Just kind of put it right back here. Now check that out. You know, I never noticed that setting before. I don't know if that's new or not. I like that so much better. I think it just looks so much cooler just to have your application icons laid out that way. But again, I'm going to keep things kind of more to their default so you guys get a general idea what it looks like out of the box. But I definitely want to show you the configuration options. If you go here, you get a little bit of customization. You can kind of change the order of things if you need to. If you need to do that, add applet. Let's see what's there. I'll just add some random things. How about that? Sound. You can have your network down here, even though that, you know, it's kind of redundant because we have it up here and now we have it down here. So as a matter of fact, I'll probably take that away. Numbered workspaces. Oh, yay. So this gives us kind of like a workspace switcher right in our panel. So that way you don't have to go up here and then, you know, click on it if you prefer this kind of thing. You can definitely do that. I think I like that actually. Kind of looks weird with it being this big with these really huge numbers. Really like that though. Wonder if you can rename the workspaces. I think you can. I think you can. Don't quote me on that. I thought I saw something in the release notes for Alpha 7 where you can do that. Now, if we go back here, I know we're making it look all kinds of funky right now, but that's part of the fun, right? Let's go to the panel, which refers to this right here. We can auto hide that too, which isn't for some reason. Interesting. We can always move it to the left. Be kind of weird. And then it goes away. Okay, auto hide is working now. So actually it didn't go away. It's just because I had auto hide enabled. So we could turn on auto hide if we want to do that. See what happens now. So it looks a little strange depending on which applets you add to your panel here. But if you prefer it on the left, you could do that. You could probably add this one to the right if you want. I'm going to put that back on the top. Appearance, we could do the same thing here. We can create a light theme if we want to make it, even more readable. We can also, oh, I like that a lot. I really do. I like that a lot. So if we really want to make it look cool, check this out. Whoops. I might even change it to that on my actual daily driver setup. I really like that. That's really cool. I wonder what this looks like large. Let's just crank it up. Why not? Oh, wow. That looks like something you'd see on a phone interface, as big as that is, like a touchscreen. So I guess if you are using a small touchscreen device, that could be something. Make it a little bit smaller. Yeah, I think that's fine. So we're just manually going through and just browsing some things here. I'm going to open this up to you guys a little bit more shortly. We're just kind of like doing a tour right now. And then I'm going to go to the comments and see what you guys have written. I can't see the comments while I do this because it's a different screen, but I'm going to go back and check that. Just real quick, we have some settings here. Wi-Fi, which I kind of already showed you guys. That's how I fixed my Wi-Fi connection. I just went in here and went to this and went to settings, and I was able to type the password in. So it didn't work from here. Now I have installed some updates, so that could even be fixed. Bluetooth. So it's got a device here that it's already detecting. Accessibility. So if you need any of these features, I think it's always great to have these features here. It's pretty much mandatory. We got to help people be able to use their computer. I think it's been the case that accessibility features have been kind of lacking in Linux. I mean, not Linux in general. It's just one of those things that could kind of differ between one desktop environment and another. So if you use accessibility features, you know what I'm talking about. Where you use one desktop environment, it doesn't do it as well, and then another one does it better. It's kind of mixed. But if you need any of these features here, it's really nice to see these. I think that's extremely important. So we already saw that we could change the wallpaper. We could do that by just right-clicking the desktop and clicking here, or going into settings and doing the same thing. Light theme. So if you prefer the light theme, that's what that looks like. Accent color. Oh, what do we have here? So this is to answer the question earlier, accent color. I thought I remembered it being up here, but it might have been an older version, or maybe that was back in Pop! OS. But that's the highlight color around the window, so we can change that here. So you could choose your favorite color. Ooh, wow, look, this is nice. So you could kind of just make it whatever color you want. I'm not going to lie, that actually kind of looks cool, the red. I like that a lot. I'm partial to green, so I'm just going to leave it on green. So we could kind of choose how rounded the elements are. Like notice right here, the import, export button, those two buttons and all the other buttons too, they're kind of rounded. So if you don't like that kind of thing, we can square it off a little bit. I think that makes it look a little bit more modern in my opinion. Interface density. It just kind of makes everything a little bit more compact, comfortable, spacious. I don't like spacious. Leave it on comfortable, I think. Change your system font right here. That's pretty cool. Sound. I mean, nothing too surprising here. You have your input volume. You have your output volume. So here we have default applications. Choose our default web browser. If we had another one installed, we could. File manager, that's pretty cool. So if we don't like Cosmic Files, I think it's fine. But if you wanted to use something else, Thunar, PCMan FM, or whatever your flavor is, you could do that. So by default, obviously, we only have one application here. With the exception of this, we also have I can barely talk today. Rhythm Box, boy. Photos and calendar terminal. Let's see what we have. Cosmic terminal, which is interesting that it wasn't already selected. I would have thought that in the default configuration they would have chosen that already. But you get the idea, right? So date and time. I'm going to enable 24-hour format. I always do that. We can show the seconds if we want to, but not going to worry about it. Kind of curious if I do have a firmware update. Not sure that it's actually going to show it there. And by the way, I was kind of curious. If I go back here to updates, do I have any? I know I just installed them, but and sometimes in Fedora, it's like I notice I have updates right after installing updates. Yep, we have everything there. That's pretty cool. So, I mean, that's the settings in a nutshell right there. Continuing on, we've already kind of talked about the tiling mode. We can get to our input and output devices right here pretty easily. Wi-Fi, selecting a different network, we could do that. I'm going to enable high performance. Why not? So that's kind of cool. You could change the performance mode right here. Change the screen brightness, although that's really not going to affect you guys. You're not going to see any difference on an external display, but it definitely works on mine. I could tell you that. Your Bluetooth devices will be right here. And of course, we have our shutdown and restart options. I really like how Cosmic tells you about the keyboard shortcuts. I think this is really good because I don't like having to look something up every single time if I don't remember something. So I like the fact that they show the keyboard shortcuts here. And I think they should keep doing that. I really do. I think that's helpful. I mean, you can always ignore the keyboard shortcuts if you don't plan on using them. But if you do, you know, like Super Escape, we could lock the screen. If you use keyboard shortcuts, we have them right here. So now I'm going to turn it over to you guys for the most part. Start asking questions. I'm going to go through the comments right now and see what we have. What's the current RAM consumption? So this is a really important comment because this is a very common question here. You really have to be like, really careful about this kind of thing because unused RAM is wasted RAM. Like I'll see people mention that GNOME is taking a gig of RAM or something like that. It's kind of not. I'll answer your question though, and then we'll kind of get into why I'm giving that disclaimer. Let's go to the system monitor. So right now it's saying that it's using 4.4 gigabytes of RAM. Now, for some people, that would be very alarming. They'd be like, oh my God, what is going on? Like I barely have anything going like open right here. So I'll just start closing some things. And it didn't really help much. So it's important to understand that RAM is cached. Gone are the days where we can really reliably tell the memory consumption just by looking at this. I mean, we can go to the processes tab and get an idea as well. But we want more memory to be used because that means things are being cached. It makes things quicker. And when you have a cache and then let's just say you did start to run out of RAM, like let's just pretend like this was getting close to 60 gigs of usage or something. You open a new application, then it's going to free up resources for that application. So it's not very easy to get a reliable look at that without just opening up the command line and typing free-m. You can get an idea here. We have 59 gigs available. We have 2 gigs in the cache. You get the idea. So memory, I really like the way that Linux manages memory, but we can't really go by the process table like right here to get an idea of what's being used. So just keep that in mind. The question is, are things slowing down? Is it starting to get unusable? That's when you really have a problem. Let's see what else we have here. Can I run right-click scripts? I don't, honestly, I don't know. I think we have at least one of the developers here. Hi, Michael, in the chat window here. Maybe they can answer that. Personally, I just don't use that much, but I could see that most people would probably find that useful. and it'd be a great feature to have. I'm sure that'd make a lot of people really happy to have that. But let's just see what we get in the comments here. We can get some information. So go ahead and ask some questions. Yeah, I guess I could kind of see the Chrome OS, Mac OS vibe that you mentioned. I mean, if it was really Mac OS, I mean, super like Mac OS, we'd have the file menu up here, which we don't. So there's definitely some similarities. Yes, I feel like every environment kind of. I'm not going to say they borrow from each other. It's kind of like simultaneous invention, but at the same time, there's logical places for things. But I can see why you'd say that. I can see that. Um, what was the other part of your question? There's no animation yet, or is that turned off? I didn't turn anything off. There's some animation. It's kind of, I mean, it's kind of lacking in that regard. I'd like to see some animation added. Nothing like too crazy, because some environments can have, so much animation that it makes everything feel slow. So having a good balance is important. But no, I didn't turn anything off. It's just the way it is by default. Whoops. Oh, do you still prefer the workstation edition with GNOME 48? On my end, it doesn't really matter, because I'm still going to use Cosmic. And again, disclaimer, this is alpha software. So here I am using as my daily driver on my other Linux machines. I'm using Cosmic. Some of these settings I didn't notice because I haven't gone and configured anything. I actually use Ansible to configure like everything, including Cosmic. So I kind of like just, export the settings and then figure out how to do it in Ansible. But anyway, back to your question. So for me, I'm using Cosmic either way, whether I run the workstation edition with GNOME 48 and then install Cosmic, or in this case, this is the first time checking out the Cosmic Spin by itself. I think I'm going to, at least for me, I'm going to use the workstation edition and then install Cosmic, so I have the choice. Now, obviously, we can install GNOME and get that installed here. It's Fedora after all, but it doesn't really change much for me, because either way, I'm going to be using Cosmic. And the reason why I'm using it, even though it's alpha, is because the tiling and the feature set is perfect for me. Like more than any other environment, Cosmic works the best for me in particular. Like it just ticks all of my boxes. It's got the tiling, it works. It's got the customization that I want. And sure, it's not going to be as customizable as like Plasma, for example, but it has all the customizations that I need. So at this point, even though it's alpha, it's pretty much impossible for me not to use it, because it's like I feel like I'm just a little handicapped, so to speak, by not having some of the features that I want. In the default tiling in GNOME isn't really nearly as good. You'd have to install an extension in GNOME, but in GNOME, I like no extensions at all, with the exception being the system tray icons, which is pretty much required. And it's frustrating for me that GNOME still hasn't realized that that's required. But anyway, that's a rant for another video. In your opinion, do you think it's far enough in the development process to run as a daily desktop environment? My answer is maybe. It really, because everyone that develops a little differently. Like every developer I've ever met has his or own like special tweaks, tools, scripts, shell customizations, and what have you. I can answer that in my case, yes. And the reason why I say yes is because the way I do it, all of my development work is run from a tmux session on a Raspberry Pi. So this could, like, if I was using this for development right now, I would have a terminal window open. I would connect to my Raspberry Pi, run tmux there. And for all I care, the desktop can crash. It can just die, and it doesn't matter, because my session is on the Raspberry Pi and I simply reconnect to it. And I really like that style, because if you have your development on a different device, it could be a Proxmox VM or another computer that's kind of like I don't want to say a jump box, because I don't allow external access to this device, but it kind of just gives you this central source of truth that no matter which computer you happen to be using, all you have to do is connect to that tmux session, bring it up, and you have your development environment. At that point, the desktop environment doesn't matter at all. It could crash, like I mentioned, and you can just get right back to it. But if you're the type of developer that prefers to open a local terminal and just develop right from your workstation completely and not have a central source like I do, then no, it's not going to be good enough for a daily driver in that regard, because you can lose work. In my case, the work is on the Raspberry Pi. There's nothing to lose. And I also have Sync Thing installed, which syncs all of my files. So I like to try to separate the working environment from the work as much as I possibly can. So that way it's resilient and I get right back to what I'm working on. So I guess it just depends on how you develop and how you like to have your tools set up. If you like everything local, then no, this is alpha, you shouldn't use it. But if all of your development's on a server, then it doesn't really matter. You could also probably make an argument about containers here too. This or Pop OS. Now, for me, it's Fedora because Fedora is more up to date. Now, the packages being out of date on Pop OS, because the most recent version of Pop OS, the underlying distro is kind of older at this point. There's actually nothing wrong with that. I know some people kind of give the Pop OS team a little bit of grief for this. And I don't think that's fair. And obviously you aren't doing that. I'm just saying in general, what I see on Reddit and things like that is people complain about Pop OS using the older LTS version of Ubuntu. There's actually nothing wrong with that because it's still getting security updates. And the Pop OS team, they're just kind of staying on a stable base while they develop this. As long as you're getting security updates, it doesn't matter. So Pop OS is totally fine for most people. But for me personally, recording videos and trying to be up to date on everything, that's just not an option. I have to have the newest software. I have to know what's going on. I have to know what's coming out, what new features are added. So I need to stay up to date. So Fedora isn't necessarily a rolling distribution, but it kind of seems that way because you could just upgrade right into each release and it's smooth. I really like to have the latest software, but for my job description, that's a requirement. For everybody else, Pop OS, I think, would be better for gaming. And it's not that you can't install NVIDIA on Fedora. You absolutely can, and many people do that. I feel like there's a lot of tweaks and customizations. There's even an NVIDIA edition of Pop OS that's going to be tuned for this kind of thing. And the developers, they really do a good job of, making sure that the latest driver is there. They're not above like adding an NVIDIA driver to the repository that's newer than what Ubuntu ships. So just because the underlying base is older, you might still have a newer NVIDIA driver. So there's going to be a lot of care and attention that they put into this for that purpose, which is why I think for most people, it's probably Pop OS, but it really depends on what you're doing. If you're not playing games, then, I would probably recommend this when it becomes final. But for right now, and also because this is alpha, I can't say to use anything but Pop OS. But that being said, it kind of really depends on if you're playing games or not. I think that really does make the difference. Now, in regard to this comment here, about the atomic desktops, I can't wait to try that out. It's one of those things that's been on my list for a very long time. So unfortunately, I can't answer this. I don't have a framework laptop myself. I'd love to try that. They've never reached out to me and never had a conversation with those people. But from what I hear, a lot of people like those. So I guess they're probably pretty good. But the atomic desktops, I'm looking forward to trying that out, and I hope to do that soon. And maybe I'll have an answer at that point. All right, give me one moment. Okay, so I lost the comment in the stream of comments here, but someone asked earlier about installing applications, and that's a really important thing to look at. So here we have the actual software manager, the Cosmic Store, I believe it's called. So it's pretty standard fare here when it comes to installing applications. I've used this on Fedora proper, and it's working pretty well. So on the first page here, and again, I clicked on this icon down here to get to this. We have the Explore tab, which kind of gives you an idea of some of the popular applications, and we get quite a few. I use Audacity for editing audio, so I may as well install that. Just click install. It'll probably ask for the password. Audacity is one of the oldest tools in my tool chest, so to speak. So it's already installed. That was pretty quick. So basically you click install and then you just open it up and that's it. Ooh, there's a problem there. Let's just take a look at that. Under notifications, it looks like a problem occurred, which of course comes with the program here. So we're getting a few bugs here, but anyway, Audacity was installed. You get the idea. We also have different categories here, like develop. All your development tools will be here. Utilities. Your installed applications are here. So this gives you an idea of some of the applications that come by default. And if anyone's curious, this is a Matrix client. I looked at this. I'm like, what is that? But after checking the description, it's clear it's a Matrix application there. We have an SE Linux troubleshooter. Fedora uses SE Linux. Thunderbird for email. GNOME Disk. I think that's GNOME Disk. Am I right? Yeah, that's GNOME Disk. It's interesting that it's at version 46 when GNOME itself is at version 48. I don't think that has anything to do with the Cosmic Spin necessarily in particular, but you know, it works. LibreOffice, which interesting to mention, all of my books are written with LibreOffice. So it's kind of funny when I see comments on Reddit where people say LibreOffice can't be used in production, which has never been true. It probably was true at one point, but for me, all of my books are written with it, and I always like the fact that it's installed here. Now, a side note about LibreOffice, this doesn't really apply to Fedora, but this does apply to other distributions. Unless you're using a rolling distribution, you should always remove LibreOffice from the repositories and install the Flatpak version. And I'm going to explain why that's the case. With every version of LibreOffice, they're going to improve compatibility with Microsoft Office. And I'm sure most of you have probably seen comments where people complain about compatibility between Microsoft Office and LibreOffice. The thing is, when you are using a non-rolling distribution, you are pretty much stuck with whatever version of LibreOffice that distribution ships, which is going to be older. And Microsoft isn't going to wait for LibreOffice or the distributions to keep up. Microsoft Office just keeps, obviously it's not like they come out with major new versions every day or anything, but they're making changes, and LibreOffice has to make changes to keep up with it. Now, if you're using a non-Flatpak version, you're going to be out of date most of the time. That's less the case here in Fedora because they always give you the newest version. But if you're using something like Debian, I hate to pick on Debian, but I will. If you're using Debian stable, then you're stuck on probably 3-4 versions behind of LibreOffice. So you're missing 3-4 versions worth of Microsoft Office compatibility, which is a lot of the times why that happens. So I want everyone to keep that in mind. I mean, normally I'm not trying to tell everyone to use the latest and greatest version of absolutely everything because, that could backfire. But there's some applications where you just kind of have to, and LibreOffice is one of those. So that's just a tip, not specific to Cosmic Fedora. It's just Linux in general. Always use the most up-to-date version of LibreOffice. You have fewer problems. But anyway, back to this. So just like normal, we have LibreOffice installed by default, which is good to have at least at a bare minimum. I like to have that. Flatpak preferred, but that's my tip. What do we have under relax? We have VLC, Kdenlive. I've never been able to relax using that because it always crashed on me. Funny enough, I used to use Kdenlive for every video on the channel. I use DaVinci Resolve now because I spent years waiting for Kdenlive to get stable, and it just never seems to happen. Now, obviously, I haven't used it in a couple of years, so to give them the benefit of the doubt, it might be stable now. But the last straw for me was one time I was working on a really important video and I got it, done. The timeline was how I wanted it. I played the video back. It played fine. I hit the render button, it crashed. I reopened Kden Live and it rearranged my entire timeline and made me start over from scratch. Those are the kinds of problems that I had in Kden Live several years ago that forced me off of it. But I guess for general things, it's fine. But once the channel was upgraded to 4K, that it took like 3 hours for a 14-minute video to render, which was just ridiculous. But I think for light duty, it's fine. But that's here. Just use Kden Live carefully, unless they have stabilized it. And let me know in the comments if you feel like Kden Live did get stabilized. I don't want to disparage a project or anything. I know the developers are working really hard on it. It's not like they're trying to make it bad. And benefit of the doubt, maybe they did fix it. Let me know. But I just thought I'd give you guys that interesting bit of trivia if anyone's curious why I don't use DaVinci or Kden Live anymore. That would be the reason. So it's interesting what we have under relax. Like some of these aren't, relaxation specific, but I think for the most part, you have a video player here because you probably want to watch movies or something, unwind at the end of the day. OBS Studio, which is, actually what's powering this entire live stream right now. Have my capture card and my camera and everything, microphone, all plugged into my OBS installation, which is pretty cool. But I think you get the idea. You just go in here, you choose an application. GNOME boxes, I talked about that recently. It's my favorite Linux-specific desktop virtualization software. I use Proxmox on my servers, but I like boxes. So while that's installing, let's get back to the comments. Now would be a good time to ask some questions. So I'm going to take a moment, rehydrate, and let the chat window fill up a bit. Any plans to review OpenSUSE? See, even I say it wrong sometimes. OpenSUSE, that's the right way to say it. Aeon, maybe. Actually, maybe. I really like OpenSUSE. Some of the videos I've done on OpenSUSE just didn't seem to get as much, traction or as much popularity. I maintain OpenSUSE in my build system, Fedora, Debian, and some others as well, but OpenSUSE is one of them. And I always maintain that because I really like OpenSUSE. I think they do a really good job. I'm actually, it's funny that you mentioned this because I'm actually in the stages right now where I'm going back to OpenSUSE, doing a analysis of the audience just to see what you guys think. I think I probably will do some videos to kind of test the waters a little bit and see if you guys are really interested in that kind of thing. And so I think I'll do a video on that or something else related to OpenSUSE. I'm in discussions with the audience, some audience members, patrons, and things like that to see what would be desirable for that. And then that'll help me test the waters. And I hope that when I do an OpenSUSE video, it takes off, because then that'd be an excuse to do more OpenSUSE videos, which would be pretty cool. What about online accounts? That's one thing I probably won't do, unfortunately. I'm really sorry. It's I have so much security on my accounts. I have to fetch a YubiKey and go through like several different layers, but then it might expose like information on videos I'm working on, which could even have an NDA or something, because if it pulls in my email or my Nextcloud or something like that. But I'll tell you what I'll do. Next time I review this or something like it, which I have to review the final version of Cosmic when it comes out. So as long as I don't forget, I'm going to try that. And then in the review, I'll mention and probably have some B-roll showing it, because in a recorded video, if anything does show up that there's an NDA on, I could always blur it out. So that's a little safer for me as a content creator. But I'll try to keep that in mind, because that's a very good thing to test. We really do want to know if that works. So I guess my answer is stay tuned. I think Kden Live has gotten better, but I've still run into issues. That's unfortunate. I've been using Kden Live until I stop for so long. Like I don't want to say, like, I almost want to say 10 years, 5-10 years is a ridiculous amount of time. And, that's the thing for me. I just got so tired of waiting on that to improve, which is a shame, because, using an open source video editor is a great idea, because we want to support the open source projects and to use them. But from a business perspective, waiting 3 hours for a 15-minute video, 4K video at a 60 frames per second was just a chore. And I watched even my Thelio with 48 cores would grind to a halt trying to churn through a recording like that, and 3 hours later. But then using DaVinci Resolve on the same machine, I can do it in probably like 8 to 10 minutes, which is a lot better than 3 hours. Now, disclaimer, my videos have several layers of effects on them. I kind of go crazy with the special effects. Maybe you guys have noticed that. But I'm not one to, just like John Hammond said, I spared no expense for Jurassic Park fans. So I like to have all those effects, but even with all those effects, DaVinci Resolve just cuts through it so quick. And then Kdenlive is just, I couldn't even use my computer while I was rendering. And it's sad to see that you're still running into problems. It's great that it's gotten better, but Kdenlive is going to be used for very important videos. So it's one of those applications where you do have to have something that works. Do you think Cosmic Alpha 7 is stable enough to use? It really depends on what you're doing. I can't really advocate for using alpha software. I mean, during the screen recording, I'm not running into bugs. On my actual Fedora workstation with Cosmic installed, I haven't seen a bug in probably a month. Like nothing bad has happened in at least a month. And I keep forgetting that it's alpha. Okay. But my workload and your workload are not going to be the same. We all use different applications, different combinations of software and hardware. So working for me does not mean it's going to work for you. All I could say is, as much as I know this isn't going to be an exciting answer, is use at your own risk and make sure you have backups of everything. If you're like me and you have a centrally available terminal running on a Raspberry Pi or for a TMUX session, and you're doing all your development work there, for example, yeah, I mean, I would be using GNOME for editing videos, because at that point I start to, not want to take any risks because of deadlines and trying to get a video out the door. I'll switch over to GNOME for that. But for anything else, Cosmic has been totally fine for me. Just give it a shot, just give it a shot and see what you think. I'll be following the development of this very closely. I daily drive OpenSUSE Tumbleweed. Tumbleweed is what I use in my build system. Actually, that's what I maintain. I just always want the latest and greatest everything. And the interesting thing about OpenSUSE Tumbleweed is I almost, if not ever, have a problem with it. Like, rolling distribution, you think, well, if you maintain an Ansible configuration that's building your desktops for you, that, rolling is always changing. You're always going to have to make tweaks. I haven't had to do anything, which is incredible. Like, I haven't had to go in and, I mean, how easy would it be for OpenSUSE to change a package name and then my configuration doesn't work anymore and then I have to go in there and fix it? That never happens. It's incredible. They do such a great job with Tumbleweed. Like, I think they're great developers on that project, because they're really doing a great job. And I think it's been about a year that I've been maintaining OpenSUSE in my build system, and I've never had a problem with it. It's just been great. You're the PewDiePie desktop. I don't even know if I'm saying his name right. The interesting thing is I barely ever have time to watch anyone else's videos, and there's so many content creators that I really love to watch. That I just never get a chance to watch. But I am aware that he did a Linux video. I saw it come up on Reddit. There's a thumbnail. I think it said something like, I switched to Linux and you should too, if I'm not mistaken. I really should watch that video. It'd be interesting if he reached out to work with me, although that hasn't happened. But yeah, I think when you have bigger content creators that have more subscribers than me start using Linux, that really helps get traction. So that's really cool. I was really happy to see that. I haven't seen that video yet. So maybe I should check that one out. That's the only downside of content creation. Like, it takes me like roughly 2 days of work for a video, like a day of recording, And then every video I've done recently has been about a day of editing, like literally a day of editing on each one. I'm not complaining. I have a blast. But then the problem is, by the time I'm done working for the day, it's time to break out a game system or watch TV or something, because I just get so tired in the long hours. At some point, I'm just going to focus in on making my system more efficient, where I'm not spending as much time on every video, so I can finally watch these videos. I feel like I'm missing out on a lot of great content creators. Is the nightlight mode already working? On my daily driver system, yes, it is. I've noticed it come up, and it's been working fine for me. And yes, I am using Cosmic for that. All right, so I'm getting into time here. I could spend a few more minutes, but I want to grab some any other questions that you guys have about this. We have it right here. Here's Cosmic. My opinion so far is I really like it. I like it a lot. I think the fact that Fedora has a Cosmic spin pretty much solidifies Fedora as my daily driver, because it almost feels like fan service to me. Because nothing against Ubuntu. I mean, you have to make a decision for yourself whether you want to use or a distribution that's backed by a company. Because and yes, System 76 is a company, but Fedora is a community project. And I tend to lean that way, because the reason why is, when you have a company like Canonical, or any other one for that matter, they can make a decision tomorrow that affects everybody. You could use the Ubuntu base, and then it has problems. And I actually predict at some point that Ubuntu is just going to be so hard for distributions like Pop! OS that they probably will have to change the base at some point, because it seems like there's a lot of work to kind of undo the Ubuntu-isms, so to speak. But I'm not trying to really pick on Ubuntu here, because I think they're doing a really great job as well. I really like the latest Ubuntu; is really solid. I did a review on it. But in my mind, I just feel better about using a community distribution, because I feel like there's less room for drama. And I think that's really important. So, Ubuntu is, you got to make that decision for yourself. And there's no wrong decision here. If you use a company backed distribution, you just have to understand things can happen. But maybe not. Maybe Ubuntu will be fine, and they won't have any drama. But considering the history of the project, especially with snap packages, and the fact they're still pushing those despite the fact that Flatpak has pretty much taken over, is a little unsettling to me. And again, it's not like I'm having any actual problems with Ubuntu. It's just a mentality. It just doesn't really factor into my productivity, or it doesn't slow me down at all. But sometimes it's just better to use something that's community driven, because I feel like it's just, the ball is more in your court. And the fact that there's a Cosmic spin of Fedora now, that really solidifies it for me. Because in the future, once Cosmic is final, then I'll probably be installing the Cosmic spin going forward, is probably the reason, or probably what will happen. See what else we have here. All right, last minute questions, guys. Let me know what you want to know. Now, in this case, I haven't, unless there's something I haven't heard, I don't really think the telemetry is an actual problem in Ubuntu. It used to be. I think Ubuntu never recovered from that. Like, I remember Amazon search results in the app launcher some time back. But if you look at the telemetry, like you could actually opt out of it. But when you look at it, there's nothing personally identifiable. It's just like what model of computer you have, how much RAM you have, and things like that. All pretty benign. So I don't really feel like that's a reason to stay away from Ubuntu. Again, unless there's something new that happened and I've been so buried in video editing that I didn't notice. But those criticisms that I've seen after they stopped doing the Amazon thing has been a little unfair from the Linux community. In the Linux community, the problem is reputation is eternal. Like when a distribution does something, it seems like they could do the right thing and people are still thinking about the fact they did the bad thing. But I really don't know if I agree about with that in particular. Now, are there reasons to steer clear of Ubuntu? Yeah, of course. I mean, there's going to be some things that are going to be problematic, some things that might be dramatic, especially given something like snap packages, and they want to snap all the things and things of that nature. But then again, if you like snap packages, that doesn't bother you, right? Then you're pretty on board with that. I try to stay neutral because I know some people aren't going to care about that. But I don't know. I mean, there's definitely criticisms to use on Ubuntu, but if there's actual criticisms about the telemetry, then I will do a video on it. Every time I've looked at it, because you can actually look at the information that's being sent and you can review it yourself and see what it is. That seems pretty transparent to me. So I think you kind of can't ask for more than that. But again, I will do a video on it if there's actually something that we should be concerned about. Am I going to switch to Cosmic? Yeah, I already do. I already use it. It's really hard to use GNOME as much as I love GNOME because the tiling is so much better in Cosmic. Like I mentioned earlier, might have been before you joined. It's just the feature set in Cosmic has all the features I like. So going back to GNOME, which has, at least 75% of the features I like, it's pretty good. It's just really kind of hard to lose that 25% at this point. And I'm I guess I could also say that I'm used to things breaking because, that's been my career. I'm always using the bleeding edge everything because I need to report on this. I need to keep you guys informed of everything. So I'll use the latest version of everything, even to my own detriment sometimes. So I guess I kind of have a thick skin about those kinds of things. But Cosmic, unless I'm editing a video, it's Cosmic. I mean, sometimes I switch over to GNOME and use that for a little while, but the built-in tiling with GNOME just can't compare to Cosmic. And I think that the GNOME project is going to have to implement something built in without an extension for tiling that works similarly to Cosmic if they want to stay relevant, because I do predict that this is going to be a feature in pretty much everything going forward. And that doesn't mean that every user is going to switch to tiling, because some people just don't like it. Some people just aren't into that and they just don't want to turn that on, and that's okay. But I do think that it needs to be a toggle in every platform. I mean, Mac OS needs it. Windows kind of has it. Mac OS has probably the worst tiling of any operating system on the planet. I had a chance to try that out recently, and their version of tiling is akin to what Windows 7 called tiling. But it's something that a lot of people like, and I think that makes a huge difference for me. And the auto hiding of the panels, it's very responsive. I think Cosmic is just fast. It's lightweight. My opinion is that Cosmic feels kind of like a window manager. Like if you were to go to i3 and use that, or Sway or something like that, which I also like. Those are window managers, not desktop environments, because they're very stripped down. But I feel like Cosmic is very window manager like. And I know that's confusing because Cosmic has a window manager. But when you look at the feature set and the responsiveness of it, I feel like there's a balance that just gives you that performance like you're running a stripped down window manager, but still being full featured like a desktop environment, which I think is exactly what we need. I think that's a great thing. So, there we go. So I think we talked a lot about Cosmic and the Fedora spin. I really like it. So I think the developers are doing a great job. Sometimes I feel like I'm on pins and needles waiting for it to finally be classified as stable, but I don't want the developers to rush because, bad things happen. And I think we all need to be patient with them. I see on Reddit, there's all these comments constantly like, why won't it come out yet? Why isn't it out yet? When's it going to come out? When's it going to come out? Um, it'll come out when it's ready. And some people might be scared that if it takes too long to develop, that it's just going to go off into the ether and just be abandonware or vaporware or something. But we already know that's not the case. If we think about Unity 8 back in the day, where that was in development seemingly forever, and the Unity environment didn't make even 25% of the progress that Cosmic has made. They have long past that point, like a while back. So I think it's clear that Cosmic is coming. It's coming out. We don't have to worry about it, everyone getting overwhelmed and they can't do it. They're doing it, right? So that's why I'm urging everyone to be a little patient. I don't want anyone to be making Reddit comments like, when is this coming out? It's going to come out when it's ready, and we just got to be patient. But with what I have seen so far, I really, really enjoy what they're doing. It's my favorite desktop environment. It already was before I started this video, because I've used it by side loading it into Fedora, which is how I've been using it up until today. So let's be patient with it. But so far, so good. I love what the developers are doing. They're doing great work. They should all be proud of themselves. Absolutely. And, any of the developers of Cosmic that are watching this, just make sure you have a thick skin about all these, barrage of comments about people being impatient. Obviously, my audience isn't like that. But, if you look on Reddit, you see a lot of impatient people. But, the thing is, you're doing great work. I really appreciate this. And I'm really excited for it, and I can't wait for the final version to come out. I know I'm not saying that in a way where I'm impatient, but I'm very much looking forward to this. And I really enjoyed spending time with you guys today. So I'm not sure what the next live stream will be, but this one was a lot of fun. So thank you guys so much for joining. I really appreciate it.